All right, we're good to go.
Good evening, everyone. This CPOC Commissioner meeting is hereby called to order. The time is now 6:07 p.m. My name is Hassan Bennett. I am the interim chair of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and I will be facilitating this meeting. This meeting was properly advertised pursuant to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. And with that being said, I will now call attendance. Commissioners, soon as when I say your name, please acknowledge yourself as being here. Commissioner John Solomon,
Present.
Commissioner John Solomon is present. Present. Good evening, Commissioner. Commissioner
Good
Melanie
evening.
DeBose.
I am here.
Good evening, Commissioner DeBose.
Good evening.
Commissioner DeBose is present. Commissioner Hakeem PA.
Present.
Good evening, Commissioner PA.
Good evening.
Commissioner PA is present. With that being said, we'll now go on to Commissioner Business. Has anyone had a chance to view the meeting agenda for this evening?
We have.
All have?
Yes, we have.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose has motion for tonight's meeting, the agenda for tonight's meeting to be approved. Does anyone second that motion?
Commissioner seconds.
I think I heard Commissioner PA second that motion. Commissioner PA, if you could, you're cracking up some. You're
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, bad connection. Yes, I second the.
Commissioner PA seconds that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And with that, tonight's meeting agenda is therefore approved. Did anyone get to review the January minutes?
We did.
Okay, Commissioner PA, Commissioner Solomon.
Yes, I have.
Commissioner PA, Commissioner Solomon, did you have a chance? Is Commissioner Solomon still with us? With that being said, I'll wait. Should we wait for Commissioner Solomon? He may be having connection issues.
Yeah, my apologies.
All
here.
is well. With that being said, do I hear a motion to approve the January minutes?
Yeah, I motion to
Aye.
approve.
Commissioner Solomon motions to approve the January minutes. Does anyone second that motion?
I second.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose seconds that motion. All in favor of approving the January minutes, say aye.
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 And with that being said, the January minutes are approved. I will now pass the meeting over to our executive director, Miss Tanya McClary. Good evening, Miss McClary. Are you ready for us? Miss McClary's ready for us. The floor is yours. The meeting is yours.
Great. Good evening, commissioners, and good evening to the community. We are excited to let you know about the work of the office since we last met. And so we are going to put our slides forward and then we will start. Great. So next slide, please. And you can find the information was dropped into the chat. So the Citizens Police Oversight Commission, we call it CPOC for short, is to oversee and investigate, this is our mission, the conduct, policies, and practices of the Philadelphia Police Department. We actually currently receive complaints of police misconduct, audit and monitor internal affairs investigations and police disciplinary processes, sit and vote on PBI panels as police discipline hearings, conduct oversight of police shootings, analyze police data, develop police recommendations and reports, and engage in outreach and training. Next slide, please. We always like to remind people why civilian oversight is necessary, because it protects human rights, it promotes constitutional policing, it increases public confidence and trust in the police, and it builds bridges between law enforcement and the public, supports efforts of policing, ensures greater accountability, and enhances risk management. And so one of the things that I want to give as an example of when we talk about it supports effective policing is that many of you know, because we reported out last month that we did a report on the PTAB. And so this is the body that oversees a lot of police discipline, including hearing appeals for officers who have been terminated from their employment. And one of the things about effective policing, it has to do with not only the procedures and the tactics and the policies, but also things that impact those things like morale. And so one of the things that we pointed out, you know, I think for many of you that the commissioners obviously and members of the public, you know, were really appreciative of that report because it really shed a light on what was going on with that particular body. And so it made sense that CPOC would talk about it from a community perspective. But what I think that some people don't realize is that one of the impetus for doing this was not only to alert you all as the community, but to also talk about how things like officers being fired and getting their jobs back impact morale, potential safety issues and stuff for officers themselves. And so when we talk about supporting effective policing, one of those is to make sure that the policies that are putting in place don't keep officers unsafe. So for example, some of the cases involved officers being terminated for sexual harassment. So if an officer is fired and goes all the way up the chain to the police commissioner, and that police commissioner finds that this officer is not fit for duty, but then it goes to arbitration and they get their job back, that's those same men and women that potentially put that complaint out are still there. How does that impact morale? How does that impact their ability to know that if colleagues that are engaged in wrongdoing or misconduct won't come back? And so when we do these kind of reports, when we try to give a 180-degree view of how this impacts the community, when we can, we also talk about how it impacts the police department because we want to support effective policing. And so having systems in place that somehow may undergird that or undermine that is part of our job to raise it to the public and also to the policymakers that have the ability to affect change in these areas. So I told you all that I wanted to start highlighting some of these points, right? So that people, it doesn't just seem to be words on the page, people actually understand what these red words mean. And so that's just a very recent example of how our work at CPOC supports effective policing. Because one thing I can tell you, you know, I'm just going to use just the plain language is that, you know, nobody dislikes a dirty cop or a dishonest cop other than a good one. So when people are coming back onto the force and things of that nature, it does really impact it. And so I just want to lift that up as an example of the supports effective policing and also ensures greater accountability as well when we're looking at these systems to make sure that there's accountability when it comes to misconduct. And so we can go to the next slide. So one of the things you all have been hearing us talk about for a very long time is the seating of our new commissioners. As you see, these 4 dynamic folk are missing 5 more. And so we are still in that process. And so as always, just to remind the community that the selection panel is composed of 3 appointees from City Council and 2 appointees from the mayor's office. And so these were the people that were tasked with those entities to actually vet the applications, interview candidates, and they are in the final throes of their work. And so we want to appreciate Anton Moore, Stanley Crawford. They were the mayor's appointees. And then Bilal Kayum, Christina Vega, and Caroline Stack, who were city council appointees. And so they have been really working hard over these last few months to try to get this process up and rolling so that we have a full commission. Next slide, please. And so we want to let people know that we have concluded the final round. The selection panel will be putting together their slate of nominees that they want to put forward. And so this month, we were hoping it would happen, I'm sorry, next month, it's still February. We were hoping it was going to happen this month, but next month we will be having our town hall. And this is a place where you, the community, get to meet the proposed candidates for the position of commissioners on this commission. And so we want to encourage you when the announcement comes out to come out. We are going to make this a hybrid event. So we're going to make it so that you all can visit us in the public as well as still participate online, because we don't want anybody to be excluded. And so all of the candidates will be there, and this is your opportunity as the community to ask them questions. We are hopefully going to have a formal time of questions with them, but we are hopefully going to build in an informal time, maybe a reception or something afterwards where you all that are in person can actually mingle with the prospective candidates and have a chance to speak with them one-on-one. So please look out for that date. It'll be on our website. We'll be putting it on social media. But next month in March, we are hoping to have the public town hall so that the community can meet the proposed slate of candidates. And then after that, there will be a city council meeting of the whole. And at that meeting, Councilmember Jones and I will present the commissioner candidates. And at that hearing, Councilmember Jones will introduce a resolution for the formal nomination of each commissioner. And then the final step in this process is that there will be a final confirmation of the new commissioners that'll take place the Thursday after the city council of the whole hearing. And so we are in the throes, we're hoping to hopefully have them in place by April. That's what our hope is. And so please stay tuned, because we really do want you to make your way to that public hearing, to that public town hall in March, either virtually or in person. And once again, the date will be announced. We are still working out a few details, but I really encourage you all to join us. And so we're hoping that some of our sitting commissioners will be able to attend, so that you guys, some of you have never even met the four that are sitting. So it'll also be an opportune time for them to be reintroduced to the community. You know them, but many of you have not had a chance to meet them in person. And so we are hoping that some of our current sitting commissioners will also join us. So during that reception time, you all will be able to meet the current commissioners as well as the slate of nominees. And so let me stop there and see if the commission, any of the commissioners have any questions.
I have none.
All right, next slide.
I'm so
It
sorry.
looks like the chair is trying to say something.
Oh, okay, Chairman.
I
And
was
I just want to
apologize.
I just wanted to flag Commissioner PA is having audio issues, so he will put any questions that he has in the chat.
Great.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I was just making sure my fellow commissioners could be heard.
Okay. And if anybody could flag anything in the chat, it doesn't look like any of the commissioners.
I'll flag anything that gets entered in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Great. So the next thing is some office updates. So we talked about some things with the commission and their updates for them, and I want to talk about some office updates. So CPOC has moved. CPOC has moved, and so we have moved to a new location. We are now at 2401 Walnut Street, and we look forward to welcoming the community in our new space. And so We will see what that formally looks like, but that means that you are now able to still do a lot of the activity you did before at our old office. We were 1515 Arch. Now we are 2401 Walnut, and we are excited about our space and our ability to welcome the community in this new location. And then CPOC's leadership is expanding. We will be hiring a deputy director for the office. And so we are really excited about this. This is a milestone for the office. There really wasn't a deputy position, so to speak. And so we are very excited about it. And this person will be a key member of the executive leadership team. So I'm very, very excited about that. And so we have had interviews. We've narrowed it down to some finalists, and we'll be hoping to make an offer to one of these phenomenal finalists in the next couple weeks. So I just wanted to let the public know that you will be starting to see some new faces that are representative of CPOC. And so just wanted to share that. So I wanted to turn it over to Chair to see if anybody has any questions about those updates.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose, do you have any questions about that, the
I
update?
have no questions at this time.
Commissioner, are you in the new building currently?
I am.
Are you comfortable?
I'm very comfortable. It's a beautiful space.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, Commissioner. You have Commissioner Melanie DeBoe's approval. Does any other commissioner have any question or comment? Well, I'm going to say, Commissioner John Solomon, do you have any question or comment?
No, I don't, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner John Solomon has no question or comment. There's no comment in the chat. The floor is yours.
I think my connection's a little bit better, by the way.
Oh,
Welcome back, Commissioner PA.
No worries. No questions.
okay, great. So we can go to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over to our administrative director, who will talk to us about and give us our complaint data for the month of January.
Good evening, folks. So our complaint report for January is up on our website. I just shared it in the chat. You can find it right on our website, where all the other documents are found for our CPOC meetings. Here is just some small summaries of some of the 16 complaints that we referred in the month of January. Again, these summaries are allegations made by complainants which have not been investigated. They do not represent any findings or conclusions. The complainant reported that a person was standing alone when an officer walked up to them and brushed up against the person. The situation quickly escalated and the person was arrested. Another complaint, officers responded to a call for service for an individual with intellectual disabilities. The complainant reported that officers did not try to stop the individual from harming themselves or others. Instead, they stood outside the house providing no assistance. And then another complaint we got, and referred, the complainant called 911 for assistance evicting a hostile individual from their home. Officers who responded yelled at them 2 or 3 times to shut up and were dismissive. The officers did not help the complainant, ask the complainant any questions, and did not give them a report or report number. The complainant felt the police were blaming them for the situation. Moving to the next slide, these are our demographics for the month of January. Since it's the first month of the year, we won't have any sort of cumulative demographics because we only have 1 month we're reporting on so far for 2025. But we had 16 complaints that we referred over. You can see the breakdown of gender and race and these graphs. Next is our allegations. Most allegations reported by complainants are lack of service. As of to date, that might change. Again, we were only reporting on 1 month so far. In past years, we see that departmental violations usually jumps up there, but right now it's lack of services is number 1, with verbal abuse being the second highest. These are the breakdowns of departmental violations. We always like to break them down since it's a very broad category. There's lots of different things in them. And so these are sort of what those departmental violations, that percent in the last graph, breaks down into this. In our next slide, we show just zip codes, breakdown of where these complaints have happened all over the city, and where the majority of them are. And that sort of ends my slides. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Commissioner Solomon here. I had a question. This is more so for the public. When you say lack of service, like what goes into that particular category? Just in case somebody might not know what that means.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it can expand. So there's a bunch of different allegations within lack of service. Let me tell you what they are instead of just making them up. I'm just going to quickly pull them up from our allegations chart. Give me 1 second while I open up the document, but it can be, I mean, it's primarily stuff where police just didn't provide service. That's sort of like the general broad strokes. But I'll give you some of those more specifics just because I think it is probably helpful for the public to understand. What's interesting is like it's kind of a more narrowed view the way we look at those allegations. So things that are in the lack of service can be failure to provide service or take police action. They could also be failure to investigate or complete an accurate investigation. They could be failure to arrest. So if I'm having a dispute and I believe the other individual should have been arrested and police didn't arrest them, that's a lack of service, failure to arrest. Failure to prepare an accurate, complete report. This is one we see a lot. I think we've had some examples that I've reported on in our monthly meetings where it's just like they didn't fill out the full report or they find out that the report numbers are wrong. That can be a lack of service for that. And then failure to be impartial is a type of lack of service, and delayed response is a lack of service. And the delayed response is one I think we've reported on a lot, where it's like somebody calls police and they don't show up for several hours and they're frustrated. It might take even a day or longer for them to get the information they need, or sometimes they just go directly to the district to try to deal with the circumstance. And so those are lack of service. Does that make sense? Do you have any other follow-up questions, Commissioner Solomon?
Yes, thank you.
Is any other commissioner?
No.
Awesome. Then I will kick it over to Janine.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm here to talk about the Auditing Policy and Research Division. We'll go through some of our work that we completed in the month of January. So I typically start my presentations out talking about our audits into complaints against police. And just to give a quick rundown of our process and what this is, pretty much every day, we are receiving new case files from the police department, from internal affairs. We receive these case files once the investigation into a complaint against police is investigated, but before the case has been fully signed off and finalized by PPD leadership. So that gives our team a window to review the case file and review the report of investigation, and then send any comments or feedback that we might have about the investigation back to internal affairs to request that some changes be made. So we have 10 business days to complete our review and send any of those specific recommendations back to the department for them to consider. This has been a great process for us. It's given us the opportunity to give civilian oversight perspective in these investigations while they're still open, and give feedback about what we think could be improved. And it's been really enlightening to have our perspective provided to these cases and to these investigators. And we use the same series of questions to assess each case, and that helps ensure that our reviews are consistent across the board. So you can go to the next slide, please. So in the month of January, we restarted our audits. There was a brief pause in receiving new case files from the police department, but we started receiving new cases on January 14th, and they have not stopped coming. We've received quite a high number of them since the 14th. But in the month of January, we reviewed and completed 14 cases. And these were only full IAD investigations. Sometimes we receive divisional cases. Those are more low-level cases that are not completed at internal affairs, but are completed at the district level for officers, and their commanding officers, typically a captain, are the ones who are working on those cases. So the slides that we'll go through tonight present some data about the audits we did in the month of January and talk a little bit about the recommendations we made for those cases. So for the 14 cases that we did in January, I have this graph here to show us the district of occurrence, to show the distribution of where these complaints were occurring. So the 18th district was the highest with 3 of those cases, and the numbers are sort of spread out a little bit from there. A couple were on the phone and one was online. Just as a point of comparison, this looks a lot different than the districts that were present in our audits that we completed in 2024. So the 9th and the 22nd district had the highest number of complaints that were investigated in that time period that we received, and those districts were not represented in January. So it'll be interesting to see what this graph looks like as the year goes on. But it was notable that the districts represented here weren't really the same as what we were seeing last year. Next slide, please. So we always record the case classification for these investigations. The case classifications can be broad, and they are applied at the beginning of an investigation, and that helps internal affairs identify the most serious allegation that's present when the complaint is made. So that classification stays with the case throughout until it is closed. And it's also how they classify their complaints on the PPD's public data website. So it's how they are tracking data on their end as well. So the highest, or the classification that had the highest number of complaints was departmental violations, as Danny mentioned in their slides. That's a pretty broad category. So I just broke down what those 4 cases were in the month of January. So of the 4 cases that were classified as departmental violations, there was 1 related to an improperly issued citation, 1 for an improper stop detention, 1 for sleeping on duty, and 1 for improper search seizure. So it's a pretty wide array of misconduct being alleged. So that category is always really interesting to drill down into, because there can be a lot of different types of misconduct being alleged there. So another statistic I always like to highlight is the time frame that it's taking for these investigations to be completed. Internal Affairs works within a 90 business day guideline. That is a guideline that's set forth by an executive order that's been in existence for a number of years now. And they try to hit that benchmark as often as possible. So of the cases we reviewed in January, about 80% of them were completed within this 90-day business range. And 90 business day range. And of the 3 that were not completed within 90 business days, they all had clear and reasonable explanations for the delay. So that's something we're always looking for. If you're saying it wasn't done in 90 business days, we really want to see a good, clear explanation that is justifying the length of the case and the length of the investigation. So that's always good to see. Next slide, please. Something we always are asking about these cases is the language in the report of investigation neutral? An investigation is supposed to be neutral. It is supposed to be collecting facts and making unbiased determinations about what happened in the incident. And of the cases we reviewed in January, we found no instances of language being suggesting any bias or being not neutral. So it's always good to see that, that these reports are being written in a very professional way, and we're not getting any indication that the investigators are looking at these facts through any sort of lens of bias. Something else we're always paying attention to is the findings of each investigation. And are those findings logical and reasonable? That might seem like a pretty low bar, but it is something that is really important to look at, because we want the findings to match the facts of the case. And the findings are really important because they are what determine whether an officer is going to face any consequences for their behavior. So we only had 1 case that was an example of an allegation that was not logical and reasonable in this batch of audits. In that case, we recommended changing a finding from exonerated to unfounded. This might seem like a minor recommendation because exonerated and unfounded both mean that an officer isn't going to get in trouble. It means they didn't violate any policies, and that's kind of the end of the road for the investigation. But it matters for accuracy and consistency. Internal Affairs has really clear written definitions for their findings. Unfounded means that the allegation just did not occur, and it's proven to have not occurred, and that would go on an officer's record as unfounded. An exonerated finding means that the investigation showed that the alleged conduct did occur, but it was within policy and it was lawful, it was proper, and there were no issues with what the officer did. So those mean different things. And I know if I was an officer, I would want the finding on my record to accurately reflect what happened in the case. So that's what we're looking for. It's also, notable that we're not saying that the investigation is saying that no misconduct occurred when the evidence is in fact showing that the officer did commit misconduct. So that's heartening to see, but it's this little tweak that we recommend when we notice it. It only happened one time in this batch, so that was good. Next slide, thank you. So we pay a lot of attention to make sure that all allegations that were made by the complainant are addressed in the investigation, and that any other violations that are present are also addressed. So a lot of times the complainant only has access to certain interactions and certain information when they're having this encounter with a police officer. A complainant, for example, may not know that an officer is not properly using their body-worn camera during the incident. But if we find that during our review of the case, we're definitely going to add it to our recommendations to make sure that it does get added so that officer can be held accountable for not using that tool properly. So we're paying really close attention to everything that we see in the case file, allegations made by the complainant, and then any other violations that are typically maybe a little bit more administrative that may be present. So in the month of January, the cases were half and half, whether they addressed all the allegations and violations. So I think that's pretty on track with how this statistic has been going throughout the course of our audits. In this batch, we found departmental violations. So those are directive violations. And those can be some more administrative issues that we see, but we still think those are important because administrative things that go wrong can really have an impact on residents and individuals who are interacting with officers. So we want to make sure that officers know when they're doing something wrong so that hopefully it doesn't happen again in the future. So we're always paying close attention to that and definitely adding those to our recommendations when we need to. So of the 14 cases that we audited in January, we had feedback for about 70% of them, and then we had no feedback for about 30% of them. We haven't received responses on these yet because it does take some time for the investigator to review our recommendations and then for it to go back up through the chain of command and be reviewed by the Deputy Commissioner at Internal Affairs. So it takes a little bit of time, but once we get those responses back, we track all of that data and we'll eventually report on that for the year. So we'll wait on those and stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. Of those recommendations that we made a total of 17 recommendations. And in this group, the most common recommendation we were making was asking the investigator to contact all witnesses or make attempts to contact all witnesses that are present in the case. So sometimes that looks like someone including a name or an email address for someone that they feel witnessed the encounter, and then we see no documented contact attempts in the case file or the report of investigation showing the investigator tried to reach that person. Sometimes there's a good reason for that. If everything is on body-worn camera and there's really nothing in dispute, maybe they don't need to contact 5 witnesses to get their perspective on the incident. But if that is the case, we just want to see that explained in the report of investigation. So it's really clear that due diligence was given to all of these pieces of the investigation. So that's something we pay a lot of attention to. And then of course, adding any missing allegations or violations that we spotted. And typically our recommendations are mostly just asking them to explain, basically show their work and explain why they did or didn't do something in the investigation. So I think anecdotally, my team and I have noticed some really positive changes in that direction with these investigations, seeing investigators clearly explaining why they didn't interview a specific officer or why they didn't contact a specific witness. So that's been really great to see. It seems like they're taking some of our recommendations and feedback and changing a little bit of how they're doing things. And then looking ahead to the next month and months in the future, we're continuing to collect all the responses from the police department for the audits we did in 2024, so we can produce results in a full report for everyone to see. We're sorting through that data, making sure everything is clean and accurate. It's simply taking some time, but we're really proud of all this work and want to make sure we can share it as soon as we can. In February, we have 47 cases due. So February is almost over. So that's a lot of audits for our team to do in a very short month. So when we get such a high volume, it's really not possible for us to review 100% of those cases. But we are aiming to audit 80% of the cases that we receive. And that's our goal. So we'll do more when we can, but if we hit 80%, we'll be very happy with that. We select the cases at this point just through random selection, and just are trying to do as much as we can with those audits. And then in development, sort of moving out of audit world, but into the other work that the division is doing, we're trying to get reestablished within the police department's directive review process so that we can understand any changes they might be releasing to their directives and their policies so that we can make any suggestions if needed, and maybe share some of that information with the public in real time once those updates are made. So we're looking to get back into that process as soon as we can. And also looking towards developing a process to track any policy recommendations that CPOC makes over time. Just getting a process in place to understand the recommendations we've made, track if those are accepted, track any implementation efforts, and just stay on top of that so that we can report out on that to the public and understand where progress is being made. And we're continuing to plug away and get closer every day to starting up our body-worn camera audit project. One of the analysts on my team, Mike Tooley, has done an incredible job putting this together and sort of picking up where a former analyst, Kimmy Crane, left off. So we're very close to getting that off the ground, and hopefully we'll be able to share some results of that in a few months. I don't want to be too optimistic, but in a few months and throughout the year, we'll be able to provide more information on that. I think that might be my last slide.
Commissioners, is that your last slide, Director?
Yes.
Yep, it is.
Yep.
Commissioner Melanie DeBose, do you have any question for Director Janine?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you, Director.
Commissioner PA, do you have any questions or comment for our Director, Janine?
No questions. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Solomon, do you have any questions or comment?
No, I don't. Thank you.
It leaves me. I do have a comment and a question. I'm sorry, excuse me. I don't know how to turn this off. I do have a comment and a question. You're always amazing. The reports are always very informative. You're definitely a key value in this agency. My question is, how are these personally for each case? How are they communicated with the complainant, if that makes any sense? Hello?
Yes, sorry, I was unmuting. That's a great question. I as of right now, the answer is there really isn't much communication with the complainants about this. We've really been focusing on sort of the back end of it and making the recommendations about the investigation process to the investigators. So typically, you know, when investigations are open, information really isn't shared with people who are involved in the investigation. And, you know, the recommendations that we make are just recommendations, you know, nothing is binding. So, you know, the police department kind of takes them and makes a decision about what to do next. So I wouldn't want to share a lot of information about that with a complainant because we don't know what's going to happen next with the case. So they always do get, when a complainant, when their investigation is finished, they get notice of that and get notice of what the outcome of the investigation was. So at that point, I think that's when they would be getting the final information about the investigation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
One of the things I do want to say, Chair, is that hopefully next month in March, Director Guy and I will be able to talk a little bit about the budget. I think that one of the things the community needs to understand is that, we are sometimes constrained in the amount of work we can do because we don't have an adequate budget. And so when you hear Director Zajac talk about we can only get to 80% of the things at some point in time, what about the 20% that we didn't get to, right? That could have had missed allegations, could have had other things that we wanted to recommend to the police department to change. And so we are hoping to have some discussion of our budget either in March or April. We're, looking at the city's timeline to understand why our community members should come out in support of the budget that CPOC put forward. We are very thoughtful when we put forward our budget asks. We don't ask for things that are excessive. We pretty much are asking for things to help us just give the level of service that this city is deserving of. And so it doesn't make me feel good when we have to tell the community that, we strive for 100%, but sometimes we can't get there because we don't have adequate personnel and other things. And so I really want the public to understand that in many cities, the police department often gets a lot of what it wants, right? So it's going to be interesting for the community to see PPD's budget. I believe it's going to be getting close to $1 billion. It's going to be, which is going to be about a fifth of the entire city's budget. But there's always a lot of extra scrutiny, so to speak, in terms of the oversight agency's budget. And in terms of people not really seeing why it needs to be funded at the level that is requested. So I'm looking forward to having some of those discussions, to unearthing some of those numbers, and then working with our city to hopefully have our budget ask approved so that we can bring the service that we need, that we want to bring to this city in terms of its ability to, our ability to handle the full volume of things that come into the office. So I just wanted to take a chance to take an opportunity to say that. Some people may feel that it's controversial, but it's true. So the truth speaks for itself. So, so I just wanted to say that. And so with that, that is, I believe, the end of the presentation from the office perspective. And so we'll be turning it back over to you, Chairman.
Chair, before you move on, this is Commissioner DeBose. I'm about to run into some technical difficulties. If I can see Council Twig in the office for just a few moments, I would appreciate it.
Pretty sure she's on her way.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Commissioner DeBose?
I can hear you, yes.
All right, so I just want to address something before, hopefully you can hear me. I just wanted to address something, just go back to the new commissioners and our role in ushering the new commissioners in. As we are the OGs or the senior commissioners in CPOC, I just want everyone to know, that our fellow commissioners, that it is up to us to usher in the new commissioners. And I just want you to email each one of you a while back. I'll double back after this meeting and email you again the NACO group dynamics pamphlets, as we are going to re-enter the forming stage, right? Deciding who fits what role and who fits into it. So I just want you all to understand the group dynamics and maintain positive gatekeeping, the positive flow of information and making sure everyone knows. And that includes the history of oversight, the different set of oversight models, what type of oversight model that we have in CPOC, as well as the expectations versus the realities of civilian oversight in Philadelphia. So I ask you all to go back and review those pamphlets and be open, because when the questions come, we should definitely have the answers for the new commissioners coming on to ensure a smooth transition. All right.
And Chairman, if I can respond to that. So one of the things I guess I should have put in the office updates is that CPOC is going to be doing some strategic planning. I'm excited about that. There's a saying in some communities that, anything without a vision will perish. And so we have already an amazing vision. We want to tighten it, we want to strengthen it. And part of that is obviously working with you all. And so we are actually going to be working with NACO to bring some of these exact trainings that you just mentioned to the commission. So they will be physically coming to Philadelphia. Some of it will be online, some of it will be in person. And so we're excited about the partnership, and Director Guy and I are working with them very closely to kind of time this around, hopefully the time that the new commissioners will be coming. So you must have been reading our mind. Many of the trainings that you just mentioned are on the list of the ones that they recommended for the commission. And so as we get closer to that process, we're going to work more closely with the four of you to make sure that we are doing this in a way that helps really onboard the new commissioners so that they can hit the ground running and be effective and join your team. So just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you, Ms. McClary. Does any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments for Ms. McClary as we move forward?
No, I don't have any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Solomon. With that being said, it's that time of week again. Community colloquy. And as I do every meeting, I will be reading this verbatim. I will be reading this word for word off of this sheet of paper. Well, I should say off of this laptop, to make sure we have no discrepancies from one meeting to the next, right? So as I'm reading this, if you have comments, just raise your hand. Just raise your hand, or put it in the chat to keep the flow of the meeting. And with that being said, the community colloquy. We welcome public comments and feedback. Please address your comments to myself as the interim chair. If you would like to speak, please provide your full name. We will not be unmuting anonymous participants. If you are a member of the media, please identify yourself as such. You can indicate that you would like to speak by raising your hand or sending a request to the meeting host in the chat. You may also submit public comment through the chat. You will have 3 minutes to address the commissioners. I will keep the time and notify the board when the 3 minutes have elapsed. Any documents or follow-up communications can be submitted via email to cpoc@phila.gov. That is CPOC @PHILA.gov. Public comment should be limited to the topic covered in this meeting. All public comments must refrain from offensive language, threats, or harassment. Participants that violate these instructions will be removed from the meeting. While we welcome your public comment and feedback, commissioners may not be able to respond to your question or comments during tonight's meetings. Be advised, every attempt will be made to follow up by phone or email after the meeting. You can contact CPOC at phila.gov, as I said earlier, or you may call us at 215-685-0891. That is 215-685-0891. And with that being said, Danny, do we have anyone with their hand raised or comments in the chat?
We do not. We had someone earlier, but it looks like they signed off, unfortunately, so we didn't get to capture that question. But I don't see any hands raised or any questions that have come through the chat currently.
Okay. We'll give it about 15 seconds. Commissioners, I also would like to advise you to.
Oh, now we have Sylvia. We have a
Oh,
hand
here we
raised.
go.
Let me. All right, Sylvia.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
Excellent,
Ms. Sylvia.
excellent reports. Thank you all so much. As you may know, I'm a member of Live Free. Been involved for years with working with CPOC, before that PAC, and hoping to make our police department more accountable. Is there anything in particular that you would like our group to be concentrating on, working on, that we could be helpful to CPOC?
All right, I'll take that. I think, you know, the most important things right now are really helping us with getting over the hurdle of getting independent investigations. And so we are going to keep you all, we appreciate the support of Live Free. It means a lot to this agency, and especially because of how you all are so you know, just on the pulse of the community. And so it means a lot that you are asking us this question. And so really helping us get over the line in terms of independent investigations, and also in terms of budget season, really helping to lift up the need for CPOC's increased ask in the budget. And so those are kind of the two big pieces I can think of right now. And then, of course, always community engagement. You know, when we are out and about, we have a phenomenal outreach division, you know, just helping to spread the word so people can come out and, you know, interact with our team and our staff. And so now, Sylvia, I'm like thinking of a whole lot of stuff. All right. And then also
Okay.
helping us with these new commissioners, right? So when that public town hall comes out, helping to advertise so that members of the community can feel very secure in these 5 people, and know that they will be here and representing you all. So, well, I had more than I thought.
That's all right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sylvia. Thank you, Ms. McCleary. I would also add clarity on what CPOC is, right? And that falls into community engagement, clarifying with the community what we do at CPOC, what is our limitations, and what is our goals at CPOC. Power Live Free has been a part of CPOC and Oversight before I knew the existence of Oversight. So you guys are on the ground at the front, on the front lines. You understand the history of it. You understand where it came from. Heck, you understand the different models all over the nation, as you guys help pick the best models and bring it forth to council in the drafting stage. So I just ask you to elaborate on with our executive director, ensure that your side of the community, or your community and the people you interact with, know the significance of CPOC and clarify any discrepancies of CPOC. And as always, we welcome you. We welcome the participation of Power Live Free as we go into this budget season, as they ask for testimony regarding the CPOC. We welcome We welcome Power Live Free and all of our community partners.
Thank you.
Ms. Sylvia, you still with me?
Yeah, maybe I'll just share a little bit too. We are trying to get a lot of community organizations to sign on to 3 critical reforms having to do with accountability, consistency, and transparency. So we are reaching out, just so you know this, to all kinds of community organizations and individuals to sign on to this to make it stronger when we go to council.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. Sylvia, can you send me an email, please? Do you have my email?
Yes,
All right. Can you please send me an email?
yes. About what I just was talking about,
Yes, ma'am.
I will do that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Danny,
I
is
don't
there
see
any
no other.
any other comments in the comment or hand raises?
Nope.
With that being said, with no other comments or hand raises, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that this meeting be adjourned, having handled the business of CPOC for the month.
And with that, that is Commissioner DeBose motioning for this meeting to be adjourned. Do I hear, so we, before I ask for a second, so we are clear why I keep saying commissioners' names before we move forward, is for the minutes. So when the minutes are taken, it is easier for the Ms. Catherine, our attorney, General Counsel Catherine Twigg, to catch the minutes. So I always like to say the commissioner's name before we move forward. So that is a motion to adjourn from Commissioner DeBose. Does anyone second that motion?
Commissioner Solomon, I second the motion.
With Commissioner Solomon seconding that motion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner P, are you with us?
He just said yes.
Oh, you said yes? All right, thank you.
He said
Aye
aye.
to be, yeah, aye.
And with that being said, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. And until next time, keep Oversight alive.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.